Welcome everyone to episode number 4 of the Lifestyle Empowerment Podcast. So on today's episode, I wanted to talk about nutrition around the workout. So peri-workout nutrition, and the definition of peri-workout nutrition just means nutrition around the workout, for those that don't know. And so I'll break it down into 3 categories. We'll talk about pre-workout, intra-workout, for those that don't know, that means during the workout, and then your post-workout nutrition. So nutrition to do with training is obviously very important to not only, improve, promote recovery, but as well as performance. Going into, for those that have gone into a workout, on a hungry state or a depleted state, a fasted state, whichever terminology you'd like to use, have probably experienced a decrease in performance. And then those who have possibly not nourished themselves properly after workout could experience other things like, excessive muscle soreness, or even things like anxiety and such. For example, some people are familiar with having post-workout anxiety. That is something that I've experienced personally in the past. So it is rather important that you are nourishing yourself properly, especially around the workout. You'll hear things like an anabolic window. I truly believe, to be borderline perfectionist, that yes, you probably want to ingest nutrients in a relatively, close time manner to the workout, post-workout that is. But realistically, the research shows you're probably okay to wait an hour or so. Why I kind of promote people waiting post-workouts, because they want to decrease their heart rate. So you're more in a rest and digest state to, start the recovery process and essentially assimilate those nutrients from your food better. Now, with that being said, eating right away, though, can also help put you into that state. But I still recommend bringing your heart rate down. But we will start with the pre-workout nutrition. Now, you'll get a lot of mixed opinions and whatnot, and even some research and such about the importance of your pre-workout nutrition. Now, I personally believe, and have kind of in my own personal experience with clients and with myself and whatnot, the pre-workout nutrition, if you've already been fed earlier in the day, is definitely not as important as some people make it out to be. Now, I think a lot of this pushing, specific foods and specific timing of the food pre-workout is based more on the bodybuilding community. I know a previous coach of mine, he would call it muffin pumps. You got to remember, when you're using performance-enhancing drugs, that can help facilitate something like that. But not saying that's not something someone should do. You can have a muffin pre-workout. It's not a bad choice. But is it super important for workout performance? Not always. And so why I say that is because if you look at where majority of your energy substrate is going to come from for that workout, it's going to be from glycogen storage. So for those that don't know, what glycogen is it's stored carbohydrates. It's stored in the muscle cell. It's also stored in the liver cells, other cells as well. But in the context of this podcast, we'll talk muscle cells. It is instantaneous energy for the muscle cells. Because if we didn't have stored glycogen and all of a sudden, something was going to fall and you had to catch it and save yourself or whatever, right? You need these muscle contractions instantaneously. There'd be a lagging effect, and it wouldn't be very optimal. So we'd need that non-lagging effect, that instantaneous energy, and that is in the form of muscle glycogen. And realistically, where you're going to get, it takes hours. It takes up to 5 hours. Don't quote me on the research. It's at least 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours for your body to actually store glucose, like carbohydrates, as glycogen. And so, as you can see, you're not going to get that from eating a meal right before a workout. It's where you're going to get most of that energy is coming from what you ate after the last time you did that muscle group. So if you go in and do leg day, where most of your energy is going to come for your next leg day is from what you ate after your last leg day. And that's because performing the workout is going to stimulate receptors on the muscle cell to uptake more glucose and store glycogen in there. Now, the muscles are selfish. they're not going to release glycogen unless absolutely necessary. So they're not going to release glycogen when you're walking, when you're talking, when you're sitting down and relaxing, when you're working, doing daily activities. They're only going to begin to release that energy once they have been placed under specific demand where they really need those muscle contractions. But if the demand is so low that the body can keep up with, glucose in the blood or even fat under optimal states, then there's no need for that glycogen. So it's going to hold on to it for essentially survival, right? Because when it really needs it. So muscles are selfish, and you're not going to get any glycogen retention from your pre-workout meal. So I try not to place too much importance on the pre-workout meal. I don't prefer fasted states though. Like I do not prefer fasted workouts because one is when you look at what exercise does is it releases cortisol, your stress hormone, which yes is required for this. And in this context, cortisol is probably anti-inflammatory. But most people are already suffering from high levels of cortisol. So now you're just exacerbating you can exacerbate certain conditions because you're coming in this already heightened cortisol state and you're heightening it even further to a place where it's not healthy, where it becomes pro-inflammatory. So where you can look at like how inflammation affects you and like higher levels of cortisol is for those that some people don't understand what a pump is. And to how I explain that to people who don't have the understanding of what a pump is it's the swelling of the muscle. It's the blood and the nutrients going to the muscle. So like, when you're doing bicep curls and your bicep gets bigger and tighter and stuff like that, that's essentially a pump. And if you struggle to get a pump, that's showing signs of inflammation because inflammation is going to kind of decrease the ability to shuttle nutrients into that muscle cell. So that lack of substrate going to the muscle cell is going to prevent you from achieving a pump. So people who work out on fasted states, they tend to experience that quite often. It's because their cortisol is already so heightened that they're pushing to a pro-inflammatory state, even though exercise is supposed to promote the nutrient partition to the muscle cell. So I don't recommend fasted workouts, but I also do not recommend eating right before a workout. Now, that depends on the size of the meal. So if you're going in and you're having like 6 ounces of steak, 300 grams of rice with whatever sort of fat source you're having, that's a lot of stress on the digestion. Now, when you're exercising, you are in a fight or flight state, or at least you should be. That takes away from digestion. Right? It's shuttling blood away from the digestion. It's shuttling to the muscles that you're using. So this is actually where, although you may not feel digestive issues during the workout, this is what can create them later down the road, later that day, the next day, or something like that. Because you're shuttling nutrients away from the digestive system, from the GI tract. You can slow down transit time. You can create fermentation. You can just create overall poor digestion, pulling stomach acids. You get less assimilation of nutrients, which is going to increase inflammation in the stomach, all that kind of stuff. So I like people to wait at least 90 minutes before a workout. Now, understandably so, some people cannot do that. So then I try to say at least an hour, or if there's let's say you have to work out at a specific time and that only gives you a half hour after your meal, just make sure it's a lighter meal, right? Or if you wake up at 5:30 and you have to work out at 6 o'clock, this is where for your pre-workout meal, I recommend like a shake, like a protein shake with a very easily digestible carb source, whether that be, some form of juice, which everybody's going to, oh no, juice, sugar high, whatever. That's fine because you're going into the exercise and you're going to utilize this sugar. So you don't have to worry about all the negative effects you hear from sugar because your body's going to be utilizing that sugar. So it's okay to have a fast-acting carbohydrate, whether it's like some sort of juice or whatever kind of thing. You just don't want like high amounts of fiber, very slow digesting carbs, steak, for example, right before a workout because it's going to be hard on the digestion. That requires a lot more digestive output. So a protein shake with some apple juice and some olive oil, right, would be a good one. You don't even need the oil if you don't want it. I recommend it though. But that would be totally fine. And then you can go into your workout. Another thing that you could do, this is kind of going to go into the intra-workout nutrition. So during, is you could use certain carb supplements. So like my go-to is I prefer highly branched cyclic dextrin. Where I'm located, though, it is a little more difficult to find. So I usually resort to Carbolin, which it is derived. Some of it's derived from corn, but it's slow gastric emptying, and it's not as bad as like when you read about certain effects that corn can have. I find it works pretty good. The only thing I will say about Carbolin is when you get the flavored stuff, it tastes amazing. And as we all know, when something like that tastes amazing, that means it's full of sweeteners, which can lead to a lot of gut issues and stuff. So just be wary of that. But I personally go non-flavored. It's not the greatest tasting, but I'm not going to jeopardize my guts. But I want to use I want to improve my recovery, I'll say, which I'll get more into that. I'll stick with the pre-workout meal here first, though. So something like that before your workout can really help. No, you will not burn more fat on a fasted state. That has been proven to be not effective. It does not work. If anything, you will burn less fat working out fasted, even fasted cardio, right? Now, cardio is not as bad. If you need to do it on fasted state, that is okay. But there's no better benefits of performing fasted cardio. And there's definitely, I personally believe, only negative benefits of performing a fasted workout. I have yet to see any of my clients or myself produce better results by performing in a fasted state. It's just too many stress hormones, right? And your liver, it's too much stress on the liver. It's too much stress on the adrenals. And I've always said the point of a workout is to dig a hole. Because stress, you have to create that stressor and then recover from it so you get those adaptations. But you don't want to dig the hole so big that you cannot climb out of it. And so this is where we don't want to work out on a fasted state. So the worst case scenario, you're getting up at 5:30, you don't have any time to eat, you got to get out the door and get to the gym, have a protein shake, maybe a little bit of olive oil and some sort of easily digestible liquid carb source, whether that be Carbolin, highly branched cyclic dextrin, or like apple juice or something like that. Okay, just watch the fiber, watch the, make sure it's not a heavy meal. And that now, but going back though, although I'm recommending to not on a fasted state, it still doesn't necessarily increase performance. It will, how that works is it won't necessarily increase performance compared to a fed state, but it will definitely be better performance than a fasted state. So always make sure you have some sort of nutrition at least 2 hours before the workout, or in a pinch, have a shake like that. So now that brings us into the intra-workout nutrition, the during workout nutrition, okay? So you'll see people eat food, power lifters love to eat their candies and donuts or whatever the hell they do. I mean, sure, it's not my first choice. Theoretically, you want sugar during the workout because it's the most readily available source, but because the body doesn't want to break it down. But you don't want to use like poor ingredients, high fructose corn syrup of candies and stuff like that, plus like donuts and stuff are full of, it's just garbage food, right? It's just an excuse to eat garbage food. Yes, theoretically you can utilize the sugar from that, but you're still dealing with the processedness of it, the toxins, messing up with receptors, so on and so forth. So I don't recommend that. If you're going to do it every now and then, okay, because I'll say more post-workout to utilize something like candy and donuts because, yes, the muscle cells are more receptive. You require less insulin. It'll soak up more of that blood glucose. You'll get less insulin spike, which means less inflammation, less complications that you hear about involved with sugar, but you're still dealing with the processed toxic aspect of it. But if you're doing it once a week, twice a week, or once every 2 weeks or something, that's fine. That's a great time to utilize your food, utilize foods like that, which I'll get more into with the post-workout nutrition. But so intra-workout, that is where, once again, I like something like highly branched cyclic dextrin or Carbolin or something along the lines of that. I used to use dextrose until I learned dextrose really floods the gut with water, so you don't necessarily want to use dextrose. So like I said, my two are highly branched cyclic dextrin and Carbolin. And what this does is, goes back to my saying there, you want to dig a hole, but not so deep you cannot climb out of it. It's going to take stress off the liver and the adrenals because you're going to have this instant, readily available fuel source. So the liver doesn't have to break down a bunch of glycogen, and the adrenals don't have to pump out a bunch of cortisol. So this is how once again, it doesn't necessarily improve performance, but it definitely improves recovery. It has been proven. It's also a great time where, let's say you're in a really deep calorie deficit and you're preparing for a show or just whatever you want to prepare for. It's a great time to place your carbohydrates. So let's say you only get 100 grams of carbohydrates. I would bias them all around the workout, right? Whether it's intra and post or pre-intra post. That's where I'd bias most of your carbohydrates, because that's where you're going to utilize them the most and you're going to use the least amount of insulin. Not that insulin's the devil. Don't take that away, right? That's a whole different subject in itself. It's just, I'm not going to get into that, but just it is a good time to utilize carbohydrates if you're in an extreme deficit, or if you have any sort of like health condition, like a chronic high inflammatory health condition that really causes you to use a lot of insulin. Because I mentioned this in my PCOS post or podcast, when you are more inflamed, it's going to make it harder to get that glucose into the cell. So you're going to use more insulin, which is going to bring on more inflammation, cytokines, all that kind of stuff, resulting in exacerbating your current condition. But as mentioned, exercise is going to open up the muscle cells, which is going to use less insulin, so you bring on less of that inflammation. So it's a good time to utilize your carbohydrates. I'll go back to pre-workout. I guess I'll give you macro numbers and stuff too. I would say for almost any individual, I would say at least 20 grams of protein. Now, keep in mind, if you're doing a protein shake like supplement is more bioavailable. And so essentially how I'll explain that is it's more easily absorbed. So if you're doing 30 grams of protein from, let's say, beef, you could probably get the same effect as 25 grams of protein from a protein supplement. So you wouldn't need quite as much. So I would do anywhere from 20 to 30 grams pre-workout, depending on the individual. Some people, like I personally eat like 50 to 60 grams of protein per meal. I'm also not eating right before the workout though. But it's anywhere from 20 to 30 grams of protein should suffice. And then for when it comes to carbohydrates, once again, there's a lot of context involved for that. But I would say at least 20 grams of carbohydrates pre-workout. It can get up. I personally eat 100 grams of carbohydrates pre-workout, but that's because I eat a lot of carbs throughout the day, so I have to space them out accordingly. And when it comes to fat, I'd say anywhere from 10, 15, maybe even 20 grams, depending on the individual. I know that's a really big gap between everything, but there's so much context that would be needed to like give you actual accurate numbers. But it's a good place to start. You can kind of just gauge from there what you need to do. Then as for during the workout, now that's going to be heavily dependent on what sort of stimulus you are performing. So if you're performing a very glycolytically demanding workout, meaning it's using a lot of glycogen, a lot of glucose, you can obviously have more carbs during the workout. So personally, when I do my average, muscle building workout, I do at least 50 grams of carbohydrates during the workout. If I'm doing like if you watched my previous YouTube episode about where I performed a specific training stimulus to really store glycogen and give me that full muscle look, I was doing anywhere from 75 grams to 100 grams of carbs in liquid form during the workout. I usually give most people, especially most people in a caloric deficit, at least 10 grams of carbs during a workout. I try to give, like women, I'll usually give less, depending, because normally they have less muscle mass compared to some men. So men, I'll tend to give like anywhere from 30 to 50 grams. Some men, I'll only give like 20 or so, just depending on inflammatory levels and whatnot. Because as mentioned, yes, the muscle cells are opening, but that inflammation is still there. So I won't use a ton because then blood sugars can get too high. So if you really wanted to get super intricate, you could use a blood glucose reader and you could test afterwards and watch your blood glucose. And if it spikes above, I wouldn't like to see it any higher than 10. Personally, I wouldn't like to see it any higher than 8, but I understand some people will go above that, which is okay in that short time frame. But if you see it going above, like too high, then okay, I will use less carbohydrates. But remember, it might also be the inflammation and so on and so forth. But so anyways, you could range from 10 grams of carbohydrates to 100 grams of carbohydrates during your workout. Kind of just see how you feel, making sure that you're not experiencing certain effects. So one thing that could happen if you're using too many carbs is your blood glucose could get so high that your body is going to overcompensate with insulin. and it's going to drop them so low. And then so what happens is either you get like hypoglycemia, you get the shakes, you get, like lightheaded, brain fog, whichever. Different people experience different symptoms. But what happened was insulin got too high, it dropped your blood glucose too low. So then you actually counteract with too much cortisol. So it's this big seesaw effect. So your blood sugar got dangerously low. So your body pumped out a ton of cortisol to bring those blood sugar back up, and then you overshoot it. Your blood sugar goes high again, so then you overshoot insulin, and it's just this seesaw back and forth, which could happen all day. It could happen for the whole week kind of thing, especially with the way some people's diets are. And so that's something to be very wary of as well. So that's why I like to test blood glucose levels if I'm running high amounts of carbohydrates, just to make sure that you're not doing too much. Because there is a point, like, yeah, you could do the most glycolytically demanding workout possible in your lowest inflammatory state, but there's still a ceiling of how many carbohydrates that you'd actually want to use. But I'd say at least 10 grams of carbohydrates during a workout. And some people can go up to 50, some people can go up to 100. I know quite a few people that could go up to 100. Once again, too, there's a lot of debate whether that's necessary or not. I personally have found much better results using something such as Carbolin or highly branched cyclic dextrin during my workout. Other people, probably don't care, probably seem fine. It's very individual based off the person. So it's something you could try out if you want to, you could see, and it's not something you're going to be able to figure out in like a day or two. Maybe you can, right? I can. If I don't have carbohydrates during the workout, I definitely know within that day that was a mistake and I should have had carbohydrates during the workout. But some people might need to do this for like a week, 2 weeks, and like compare performance and whatnot in the gym and body composition and so on, blood sugar levels, to decide whether or not this is working for them. I personally believe every human being can benefit from having carbs during their workout. It's one of the best times to have your daily carbohydrate intake. Or put some of those carbs there. So, and when you do that, so here's what I recommend. So let's say you're doing 50 grams of carbs from Carbolin or highly branched cyclic dextrin, for example. Use 750 milliliters of water, okay? Add a little bit of salt in there. The flavor of the supplement will offset it. And going about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes before your workout, chug half of that. Because it's not like it's going to be instantaneous. It'll still, even though it's like very quick, it'll still take a little bit, right? So about, let's say 10 minutes max, chug half of that. And then as you're going through your workout, sip on it. And then when you have about, let's say 2 exercises left, so let's say 8 sets total, finish it off. And then that should help with the recovery process there. Another thing that I personally like, once again, there's massive debate about this and people will tell you it's a waste of time, and I understand the research and I understand why. But I personally, I'll say if it's feasible, meaning your wallet can afford this, I like using essential amino acids during the workout. For me, it just improves recovery even more. I experience less muscle soreness. Whether it's a placebo or not, I don't care. It works for me. I've had other clients claim that they prefer it as well. So I like using essential amino acids. I prefer that over BCAAs, because it's just more, it's a complete protein source. But you have to be careful because you got to watch. Lots of companies use poor ingredients, or the ratios of the essential amino acids are off and you get too much of one thing that can create a histamine response. And then that will create inflammation. And so I'll go more into supplements after I finish up talking about the nutrition part. But you can use that if you want. You could try it out, see if you like it. As mentioned, I personally do it with every single workout. I use anywhere from 10 to 13, maybe 15 grams of essential amino acids, depending on what the workout is. If it's more of a glycogen, like glycolytically demanding workout, I use less. But if it's more of like a, we'll say, muscle building workout, I'll use more essential amino acids. And so bring us to the post-workout nutrition now. So as mentioned, as for timing, I personally like to wait at least 20 minutes because you want to transition the body over to a more rest and digest state, a more calm state, bringing that heart rate down. This way you better assimilate nutrients. There's less stress on the digestion because now you can start shuttling blood towards the digestion. So with that being said, some people could take an hour to calm down. But the best thing you could do post-workout to activate that parasympathetic rest or digest system is something like box breathing, diaphragm breathing, stretching. Those kind of things will all activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So you can get into that more rest and digest state quicker and eat your food quicker, especially if you're time constrained, right? And so that's one way of doing it. But if you're not super time constrained, I recommend still doing the box breathing parasympathetic activities like casual walking, all that kind of stuff, but wait anywhere from 20 minutes to a half hour. Make sure your elevated heart rate, whatever it's at, has come down to more like closer to your resting heart rate. So I'd say at least 80, 70 beats per minute for your resting heart rate after a workout. And then you can ingest your post-workout nutrition. So for this is where, yes, simple sugars, simple carbohydrates are very, if you want to fit in these, this is a great time. So this is where, yes, you can ingest things like candy and donuts and stuff like that. Do I recommend it? No, but it's going to be less damaging if you do it in this manner. So with any sort of event that you have coming up, holidays, time with friends, whichever, if you really want to not worry so much about what the food's going to do to you, just make sure to get a workout in before, right? Or at least work out that day, because the nutrient partitioning aspect of the workout can last quite a while, a couple hours afterwards or whichever. So this is a great way to ingest simple sugars, but it's also almost what you want, because you want that rush of glucose to blunt cortisol, because cortisol is your stress hormone. It takes you out of that rest and digest state. So by blunting that cortisol, you then become more parasympathetic and better assimilate your nutrients. So this is one reason why we do use simple carbs. So example for me, my post-workout is I do like a protein shake just for the ease of digestion, because I am very vulnerable when it comes to digestion, very susceptible to digestive issues. So I will use a protein supplement. It's just less work for my digestion to do, more readily available, more bioavailable. Do you have to do a protein supplement post-workout? No, you don't, right? You could do beef, fish, chicken, whatever. It doesn't matter. Protein, it's still a good protein source. I just like it for the ease of digestion. And then what I'll do is I'll do rice. I'll do, depending on the workout, I will do maybe fruit high in fructose, or I'll do fruit low in fructose. If it's not something if my liver doesn't need a lot of energy because it was more muscle building and not really like a systemic workout, I'll use something like pineapple, for example. Just watch the histamines. But if I'm using like a liver type style workout, I'll use more like mango because it's higher in fructose. So fructose will go directly to the liver to help replenish liver glycogen, gives the liver energy, really helps improve recovery. So it's just depending on the type of workout. But yeah, some rice cakes, whatever. If I really need to make up the carbohydrates without overloading my digestive system, I will use things like syrup, because once again, these sugars are okay post-workout, or they should be okay. If you're really concerned, check your glucose levels, things like that. And I do, I've always preferred, I used to not add fats to the post-workout meal because the people were like, oh, adding fats slows the release of glucose and inhibits the recovery and blah, blah, blah. Research has shown that fats are totally okay. If anything, they actually can improve recovery. So once again, though, I still use the simplicity of oils, like an olive oil, a walnut oil, or something, just for the ease of my digestion. So when we're talking macros, I would say post-workout anywhere from 30 to 50 grams, maybe even 70 grams for some heavily muscled individuals pushing a really hard workout. There is the argument that it's not necessarily about protein timing, it's more about your overall daily protein intake, but there is some research showing that, okay, protein timing can have an effect, right? And when we're talking general population, yeah, don't concern too much about something with protein timing, but when you're talking you're trying to be you're trying to win a trophy in a bodybuilding, yeah, I really believe protein timing is super important. I think it's something that should be focused on. So anywhere from 30 to 50, 70 grams of protein. The less muscle you have, the less protein you'll need, kind of thing. Carbohydrates, I would say anywhere from 50 to 100 to 200. Some people do 250 grams of carbohydrates. Once again, check your blood glucose levels. And then fat, I'd say 15 grams. 10 to 15 grams is probably all you need post-workout for your macros for that. And so for me, that's what I found over the years, and not just experience, but research as well, and education and everything. I find that's the best thing kind of to do post-workout, is the simple carbohydrates. It's okay to have a little bit of complex in there, but I wouldn't make up your entire amount of carbohydrates from complex carbs. So get some simple sugars in there. Yes, it's a good time to enjoy some quote unquote unhealthy foods. makes them less damaging to the body. I'm not saying that's not damaging at all, but it is a good time to enjoy these. And then protein, I prefer a protein supplement. I know some people don't like them. You do want to be careful because protein supplements can be full of trash. I'm sure many people are aware of that. So if you're going to use a protein supplement, make sure to use a quality one. And then your fats, just use olive oil or, I don't know, dark chocolate or something. A little bit of fiber is not going to hurt you post-workout. So yeah, that's what I would recommend for the peri-workout nutrition around the workout. And so I'll talk about supplements now. So when I am talking about pre-workout supplementation, although I said like make sure the meal is you're at least getting 90 minutes, or an hour. Worst case scenario, do, protein shake and Carbohydrate or something pre-workout. But I like to time the pre-workout supplementation anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. That gives it enough time to kind of get into the bloodstream, do what it needs to do, and then you kind of start noticing the effects. So I hate pre-workouts. I cannot say that enough. I hate pre-workouts because they're full of so much garbage. They're full, like, when you look at a pre-workout, it's just marketing, right? You'll read all the benefits because you'll be like, oh, that's really cool. Huperzin AZ, however you pronounce it. Arginine, cordyceps, lion's mane. Like, you read about all these things, glycerol and everything. And yes, they can promote certain functions that make you feel like you got a better workout. But the whole point of a workout is to create a stressor that you need to recover from, because that's how you get adaptations, right? It's like babying someone their whole life. If they've never experienced something difficult, they're not going to be a very good adult. I'm sorry, but I got to say that, right? So you need to create this damage. So if you're taking a bunch of antioxidants and all this kind of stuff pre-workout, it's going to like limit that. Now, once again, yeah, you're still going to get results, right? But if you really want to be optimal and invest your time in this and make the most of your time, I don't recommend usually any pre-workout you find on the counter, right? Or at the supplement store or whichever. When you're talking about bodybuilders really promoting this stuff, you got to remember they're doing drugs too. So you just always have to take that into mind. So when it comes to pre-workout, I also do not prefer caffeine, once again, because the pre-workout is a cortisol response, and that's what caffeine is as well. If you find that you literally cannot find the motivation to get to the gym, then yeah, okay, maybe a little bit of caffeine. But the problem is these pre-workouts come with tons of caffeine, usually anywhere from 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine in one shot, because like a coffee, you're usually sipping on it. So you're getting a slower release of that caffeine, even though it may be the same amount. Pre-workout, you're slamming it back. So you're getting that instant surge of caffeine, and it's not good. I do not prefer caffeine. There are some training phases where caffeine can be great, like strength training, because it acts as a nootropic and everything. But make sure to cycle it. Don't abuse it. Make sure you're getting good quality, all that kind of stuff, right? But most people know how I feel about caffeine. So for me, what I love pre-workout are nootropics. So we'll say brain supplements. And I like things like alpha GPC, because not only is alpha GPC the building block for acetylcholine, which is heavily responsible for muscle, like in the context of working out, is responsible for muscle contractions, but it also helps regulate your dopamine. And so you'll find that alpha GPC can give you good energy also. Choline CDP, you'll read about that as well as a building block, but that will help more with focus. So if you wanted to learn or whatever, I'd recommend more choline CDP. Not that alpha GPC is bad for that, it's still great. But if you really wanted to get nuanced, like technical about it. But so pre-workout, I use something like alpha GPC and L-tyrosine. So L-tyrosine helps build dopamine, and that's motor unit recruitment, energy, stuff like that. Mixed with a little bit of oral L-carnitine, because that L-carnitine, you'll read how it helps shuttle fat into the cell. It's an enzyme, so on and so forth. It's been proven that it's not very effective for that at all, but it is great for increasing the absorption into the brain of your nootropics. So you can use less nootropics and get the same effect when combining that with L-carnitine. So that's usually my go-to for your quote-unquote pre-workout. But I also like doing maybe a little bit of glutamine, because glutamine can help with nervous system energy, things like that. Glutamine during the workout can help flush acid at the level of the kidneys. So just creates efficiency there. So you can kind of go maybe, let's say, deeper into a set. You could also do things. So I don't like arginine, because arginine will deplete other nutrients in order to work, I'll say. So I like citrulline malate, because it doesn't have a negative feedback loop, is what people like to call it. And so citrulline malate acts as a vasodilator, so it can improve blood flow, nitric oxide production. Sorry, I kind of messed up there. Arginine, that's not what I'm, okay, sorry. So citrulline malate acts as a vasodilator. It will improve blood flow and increase your pump. And what I meant to compare arginine to was, I'm sorry. My apologies, everyone. No, that is what I want to compare it to. What I was going to say next was beta alanine. Sorry, it's getting late in the day. So beta alanine, a lot of people will see that and they'll see it in high doses and they'll be like, sweet, I like beta alanine. And they'll take it and they'll get the tingles and everything. And with these tingles, people think, oh, sweet, like it's working, it's going great, blah, 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 whatever. That's actually a really bad response. That's a histamine response. That's actually creating inflammation. It can actually decrease your workout performance. So when it comes to beta alanine, you want to use a small dose and titrate your way up. Work your way up to a higher dosage, anywhere from I would start with 1 gram, making sure you're not getting the tingles and everything, and work your way up to anywhere from 3 to 5 grams, depending on the individual. And what beta alanine will do is it helps flush acid, how do I explain this? It helps buffer acid at the level of the cell. And what I mean by that is you could probably go deeper into your sets. And so if you're doing a glycolytically demanding workout before without beta alanine, you could only done 7 reps. Beta alanine might help you do 9 reps. So in proper context, beta alanine can help improve performance and ultimately your results in the end. So you can do some of that pre-workout and during as well. So during the workout, I recommend things like glutamine and beta alanine during the workout with your Carbohydrate or highly branched cyclic dextrin. Same kind of effect and same maybe a little more citrulline malate as well. Do you need any of these? Definitely not. No. But I enjoy them. I like them, right? But if you're doing a workout that doesn't build a lot of acid and doesn't require a lot of vasodilation, you're doing 3 reps on squats, 1 to 3 reps, you don't need citrulline malate and you don't need beta alanine. There's no point. Save your money, right? Glutamine, yeah, I like it because of what it does for the nervous system. So I really like glutamine. But you don't need those other stuff. But pre-workout for any other workout, yeah, and during, I think is great. And then when it comes to post-workout nutrition, because that's all about recovery, you want to look at things like magnesium and theanine, anything to bring down those cortisol levels, to essentially calm yourself down. I just personally take taurine as well, because taurine also helps calm the central nervous system. It also helps with electrolyte balance, that kind of stuff. So I like taurine. It also helps make magnesium bisglycinate. That's the more common one. It helps make magnesium bisglycinate a little more effective. Same with things like vitamin B6. That's where I use Cinermag from ATP Labs. It's one of my favorite go-tos for magnesium bisglycinate. And then just some theanine. Theanine promotes GABA production, which is your calming neurotransmitter. So it helps calm you down. If you're really, taxing the liver, let's say, then some glycine can go a long way. Just be careful not to use too much or you might poop your pants, okay? Once again, titrate your way up. But if you're using a beef protein supplement, the difference between beef and whey, one aspect is it is higher in glycine. So I don't supplement glycine when I'm using a beef protein supplement, because there's a good amount in there already. Unless I feel like I did a really heavy liver workout, then I will supplement glycine. But realistically, do you need to do those? No, right? Just make sure you're doing your calming activities, bringing down those cortisol levels, and making sure that heart rate is coming back. But these will assist in that. But understandably so, supplements can be expensive and quite annoying to always have to take them and whatnot. But yes, they do help. But are they going to make or break the general population? No. Would I recommend it for bodybuilders? Of course I would. That would make a huge difference, I think, long term for bodybuilders. It's all about recovery. It's not what you do in the gym, it's what you recover from. So if that recoverability is not there, there's a lot of wasted effort in the gym. And a lot of people will see that. They'll go to the gym because it acts as like a stress reliever for them. But then they'll realize that, okay, my stress is relieved during a workout, maybe a little bit after a workout, but then the next day it's worse and it's never ever getting better. And that's because training is a stress and they're not recovering properly. So it's affecting your body's systems. It's creating low hormones, anxiety, even depression, stuff like this, because it can be disrupting gut health because the high levels of cortisol are eating away at the gut lining. And I can go on for that. So remember, it's not what you do in the gym, it's what you recover from, okay? So hopefully that covers enough to give people a little bit better understanding of what they should do with their nutrition around the workout. As mentioned, pre-workout nutrition, I personally believe is nowhere near as important as people make it out to be, mainly because it takes 4 to 6 hours for glycogen to be stored anyways. But we also don't want to come in a depleted high cortisol level state. So this is why we eat before the workout. During workout, I think carbohydrates are an amazing tool. Some people may disagree with me, but I personally have seen great results from them for myself and for my clients. There is research on that as well. And then post-workout nutrition, that whole anabolic window, you need to instantly get your nutrients in. Maybe there's some merit to it, but I think you're going to survive if you wait 20, 30 minutes. You're not going to, miss out on that muscle gain or whatever. And even an hour you could go for some people in some situations. So don't stress about that whole, I got to eat right away, otherwise I won't grow muscle kind of thing. So, but yeah, hopefully, like I said, that helps some people here. And thank you all for listening and watching in. And take care, everybody.